Check, check. This thing on? Scott Politakis here, Polcast Media. Today on the Polcast, well, I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself, how I actually got into line work, and how my journey went as through an apprenticeship and becoming a journeyman lineman. My father was actually a coal miner, and so when I was young, sometimes I got to go to the coal mines with him, and so they had substations there in the coal mines. So I learned, about a hot stick back, when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, running a stendo stick to open the fuses and stuff over there for the substation. So everything in the mines was, the way I best remember that my father telling me, it was underground. They had 4160 that run through the mine. And all the equipment, the scoops and the miners and everything, actually run off 4160. And they had transformers on them that stepped the voltage down to the machine. So I guess that kind of got me really started thinking, about electricity. I liked that sort of thing. It was neat to me how that worked. So it really interested me. So I went into actually making socks for a living, right? That was my first real career, if you could call it a career, textile. But I immediately had a mechanical mind, so they put me to fixing machines pretty quick. And so once I started fixing machines, then I went to Gaston State Community College and took some electrical classes and started actually working on the electrical side of the machines more so than the mechanical side. So when free trade happened with China in 2000, the textile business went overseas, which forced me to seek for another career, right? So I thought, well, I want to go into electricity for sure, right? I don't think electricity's going anywhere. I just lost my job because textile industry went overseas, but I don't see electricity going overseas. So I found an actual 15-week course there in Trenton, Georgia, and I applied. They accepted me, and so I started there in 2001. Most of the viewers have probably been to a school. There's great things about the school. There's linemen out there that say you wasted your money. That's the dumbest thing you could do is go to school. And then there's other people that actually believe in it. I am a true believer in this school because without it, I wouldn't been able to get a line work career the way I was. Back then it was a lot of, if you knew somebody, you could get on with a power company or things like that. And, of course I didn't know anybody. So when I went to school, week 12, I got hired, in Texas. Now I was in school in Trenton, Georgia, and they hired me in Lewisville, Texas, just right down the road from where we're filming. That was my first job. I moved my whole family for $13 an hour from Alabama to Texas. Started there as a second-year apprentice because I had I'd worked on 600 volts or less, so they give me a little credit for that. They gave me credit for school, so I started as a second-year apprentice. So during my apprenticeship there, I had a pretty rough foreman. He was old school foreman for sure. He had come from the Panhandle where they hot sticked, so he was a firm believer in climbing a lot. So it wasn't a problem for me to climb. I liked climbing. So when I got there, right off the bat, you kind of learn real quick that you are still just an apprentice, and the journeymen are just like to aggravate you, right? They want to aggravate you. I think years after going through all the aggravation and everything, I realized that that's just really part of your training. That if they're yelling and screaming at you, then you're not doing what they want you to do. So basically, you just need to listen, keep your mouth shut, and start doing what they tell you. And you're gonna get yelled at regardless. It's just part of being an apprentice. I told Sam a story the other day about the ice chest. So, when you're a low man on the crew, it's usually your job to ice up the trucks every day. So we had a cooler that we carried bottled water. Bottled water was new back then. They just started bottling water. And so we would carry some bottled water in a foreman's pickup, right? So one day, one of the first days we decided to do this bottled water thing, I just put the water in there and filled the ice chest plumb full of ice. So then at break, when the foreman goes get the ice, the water, go get the water out of the thing, he immediately starts screaming, "Who the hell put all this ice in this cooler? You can't even get to the water." So the next day when I iced the truck up, I only put half of the ice that I put in the day before. Thinking I'd done it right, he opened the cooler up again that day, and instead of too much ice, he wanted to know who the hell didn't I put enough ice in the cooler. So inevitably, you're going to get yelled at when you're starting out. It's something they do. You can't win. The best thing to do is just take it with a grain of salt uh, and go to work. Just go to work. Learn what they're telling you. Do what you're doing. Um, it, in my years, it works. It works the same, even like when you get up into later on in your apprenticeship and stuff. You got to work with different crews. Being adaptable is something that you need to be able to learn how to do quickly when you do line work and you're apprentice. As being adaptable, because you may go with another crew and that foreman or that lineman does things differently. He wants some material put together. He may like his bolt going this way in the cutout bracket, or he might want his bolt going the other way. So you have to learn, because basically you are there to help that journeyman lineman succeed and help your crew succeed. So the faster you get to where you learn that crew, then you become a part of that crew, right? And then you start becoming productive. Once you start becoming productive, then your apprenticeship, they will actually start teaching you stuff. But if you don't ever get to where you're productive on the crew, more than likely going to get rid of you. So I did my 4 years apprenticeship. I made journeyman lineman in Louisville, Texas. So at the time, I didn't much care for big city life. I wanted to go back to smaller living, like where I was from. And so there was a position opened up in Nocona, Texas. So I took the position and moved up there to Nocona and did a lot of my career up there in Nocona. Eventually made foreman up there in Nocona. And then towards the end of my career, I moved down south, worked for a co-op, took a troubleman job. Easiest job I ever had in my life, working at a co-op. I bought some property right there close to the co-op. Actually adjoined the construction center yard, so I could ride my side by side to work. It made it pretty nice. Just me and an apprentice, keeping the lights on there in George West and Beeville, Texas. So I made the decision after I started getting older and the body started hurting more. I made the decision to go into teaching. So I went back to actually the school I graduated, and they hired me there. I taught there for about 4 or 5 years. I think 4 years, 5 years, 5 years. And then now I'm working back in Dallas, Texas at another school teaching. I enjoy teaching. I usually just teach an EL program. So it's definitely a challenge with some of the students today. Some of the generation is definitely a lot different than it was when I grew up. You got this nice little safety device here that you can use now that keeps you from falling off a pole. We never had that when I learned how to climb. We actually called these hooks right here, we called these widow makers, because if you didn't have this device, so if you fell, you just went to the ground usually, or slid down the pole, got splinters all over you, or so, if you were climbing up 65 foot, 90 foot, if you were just pretty much knew you was a goner if you hit the ground. So we call them widow makers. And then I don't remember when it was, maybe 2012, 2013, somewhere around in there. It's where the OSHA mandated this fall restraint device. When it first come out, of course, we all hated it. We thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. We didn't know how to climb with it. You have to keep it on the whole time we were climbing. We weren't used to that. We were just used to putting our hands on the back of the pole. So a lot of us would sneak, even though we weren't allowed to, and still climb without them. And so finally, while I was working there in Nocona, they hired an apprentice who had just come out of a line school and had learned how to climb with this thing. So I was a journeyman lineman then. So I seen him climbing this thing one day. So I waited till nobody else was around. We got back in the yard that afternoon and I said, "Hey man, can you show me how to use that thing?" So I actually had an apprentice lineman teach me as a journeyman how to use a fall restraint device. We just thought it was odd and awkward and we didn't know where to go or how to adjust it. They just gave it to us and told us to wear it. Um, so uh, this thing, once I learned how to climb in it, man, there was many days when I had to climb 65 foot or 90 foot up in the air that I would have felt a lot more comfortable if I had this thing on. Once you free climb enough, you don't really think about it. It's same way with this. That's one of the things you do is when you start teaching them in a school is teach them to trust their equipment, right? You gotta let them trust their feet, trust the gas, get them their technique going. So usually it takes a good week before you can actually get a student to where he can advance up to 5 foot on the pole without falling all over the pole or cutting out, as we call it. So cut out is basically when your foot slips and you miss and you actually slide down the pole. So that's right, what you call a cutout. So you got to get them to where they're not cutting out anymore and things like that. So yeah, the fear to me is a lot in the cutting out thing when you're teaching them. So if they're always falling off the pole, then it's hard to get confidence if you're always falling off the pole. So balance is the key in learning to climb to me. If you can balance on one leg, then you can balance and shift your weight while you just step up and down the pole. That's pretty much the key to it. That's what I train. So now that's what I do. I've been teaching here about a year, and so I've had several students in my career teaching. I hope that you guys are listening and liking and following and all that good stuff. I'm all new to the social media thing. I finally got a TikTok page, I don't know, maybe a month ago. That's how new I am to this. so, most of the time, if you see us there on the Podcast Media TikTok, don't expect me to be on there answering. Sam's going to answer most of them for me. But she does. If you got questions or anything, she lets me know. So we're gonna address one of those questions right now. So it's about my boots. There's been a lot of comments about my boots. Okay, so these are double H ANSI electrical standard boots. Definitely fine for this type of business. Unless you have a company that won't let you wear that kind of boot and you have to wear a climbing boot, such as Halls or something like that. So here's my story. Back to my little rough foreman that I had. All right. So those I got Westco climbing boots, and those things come up to my knee. They were the tall ones, right? They were aggravating to put on. They weren't very comfortable. So, they allowed us, as long as you had a composite toe, you could wear just your composite toe boots. So I just started wearing cowboy boots, working on my cowboy boots all the time. So when it would come time for me to climb a pole, I would go put my Westcos on. Well, about the second time this happened, my foreman told me that if I couldn't climb with what boots was on my feet, then I was to wear those Westcos all the time. So I learned how to climb on my cowboy boots. And so that's what I've learned how to climb, and I've been climbing on them for years. So I just prefer to climb in them because that's what I'm used to climbing in. Yeah, these are nice. These are double H standard. So you can get them at Cavender's, J.L. Matthews. Can get you a pair of them. So if you don't like wearing your climbing boots all day, if your company lets you, give these cowboy boots a shot. They work just as good. People say, do you hurt your feet? Well, I don't know. I guess being a journeyman lineman, I'm not on the pole that long, right? I guess if I had to stand up there for 8 hours because I didn't know what I was doing, yeah, my feet might hurt. But usually you're not up there very long. You're just up there to fix whatever the problem is and get back down. Um, let's see, y'all. This is another little thing. Some people were commenting about my gaffs on the concrete. So what we got here is is a neat little magnetic gaff guard. Okay, so it's a magnet, and it just goes right on your gaff right there. All right, they're way easier to take off than those gaff guards that pop on with a spring or things like that. You can get these at J.L. Matthews too. When they first come out, man, I thought they were the cat's ass. Just because they're easy to get on and easy to get off. You ain't got to mix that little clip. Most time that little clip will break on you over time of popping them on, popping off. So this little dude is just perfect. He's just perfect. Stick him right on there, and you're good to go. All right. So yeah, you're right. Everybody should wear their gaff guards when they're walking around, right? But I only walk about a foot to the pole, so I don't think they're going to be okay. I don't believe I'm going to dull them that quick. Just put them on and walking the foot to the pole. Other things we don't talk about is what we'll be talking about on the show. You guys, if you got questions or comments, put them in there. We'll address them. We'll talk about them on the show. I don't care if you're getting yelled out by your foreman and you need a little advice. Sure, ask me. I may not give you the right advice, but I'll give you some sort of advice. We doing a line work is it's a pride thing. Lineman is a very proud person. You are it's a way of life. You're on the road a lot. You're traveling a lot. So you don't, you're away from your family a lot. Most journeyman linemen have been divorced 2 or 3 times. A married life is tough when you're not home. It's hard to stay married when you're never home. You got some questions already? What's our question?
Okay, so one of the questions was someone is wondering about an apprenticeship, if they should go to Cellcat.
Let's say it louder.
Cellcat?
What about Cellcat?
Should they go to Cellcat or somewhere else for their apprenticeship?
Okay, so the question is whether I should go to Cellcat or somewhere else for apprenticeship. Okay, I get this question a lot from my students, a lot. Okay, so the main thing you have to realize is that Swellcat is the IBEW. Okay, so if you're going to go to Swellcat, you're going to be an IBEW lineman. All right, absolutely. IBEW, love those guys. Those brothers. I was a member of the local 66. So it's a brotherhood. It stands for International Brotherhood of Electrical Line Workers. Okay, so it's a big deal. All right. So once you start an apprenticeship with Swellcat and you come out of Swellcat, you are now an apprentice lineman in the IBEW. All right. So the way the union works is you work out of the hall. There's going to give you the short and sweet method to it. So you work out of the hall. So there's contractors that are contracted through the IBEW. So you're going to work for a contractor that's contracted through the IBEW, which means that your benefits and your PTO, your things like that are through the union hall. So you're a union member. You're called now. That's a great way of life. Most of the time, if you're in the union, you're going to travel within the state or jurisdiction of the union you're in. Like, for instance, we have the local 220 here in Texas, which pretty much takes from central up to North Texas. And then the local 66 is from Central Texas to South Texas. So if you're in the 66, you're pretty much going to be working in the South Texas. If you're in the 220, you're going to be in North. They don't travel much from state to state unless, of course, there is a hurricane or stuff like that. The IBEW does go work storms like that. So if you want to be in a union, then yes, you're going to want to go to Swellcat. Now, if you do not want to be in the union, then you definitely don't want to go to Swellcat because you'll be 100% union. A lot of people want to know the difference between union and non-union. It's just like I said, it's a brotherhood is stronger there in the union. The unions, you've heard union strong. So if you work with the union, you're going to learn the union way, right? And the safest way to do things. Perhaps if you're a journeyman lineman, all a journeyman lineman does is he's a journeyman lineman. You know, he's not going to be doing what an apprentice lineman does. He's not going to be doing what a ground hand does. You know, he just does his job. So in the union, if you're a groundman, that's all you're going to do is be a groundman. You have to wait for an apprenticeship to open up to get into the union, right? So if you go to Swellcat, they're accepting you because they're accepting apprentice linemen. If you do not have a Class A CDL, forget it. Swellcat's not even going to take you. You must have a Class A CDL before you can apply for the union. What else we got? I hope that answered your question.
I guess.
That was the only one we had?
There
We had a
was.
question from a mom, didn't we, about our son going to line school? And
Oh, okay. If somebody is interested in line work, they have no experience, no background, where do they start?
okay, so I would definitely strongly suggest if you have no experience and you're talking about doing a line work job, is finding a 15-week school. A lot of companies won't even hire you without a 15-week school now. So the best thing to do is here's the reason why. Okay, if a company hires somebody off the street, all right, and then 3 months into it, they teach you to start climbing poles, and you are scared to death of heights and can't do it. They've wasted 3 months training you. All right, now they're going to have to let you go because you can't climb a pole. Okay, so that's one of the reasons they like to get students out of the schools, because the students are proficient at climbing poles. Another thing is you get several certifications. You'll get your CPR, your OSHA. You're going to get certified to climb poles. You'll get pole top rescue, bucket truck rescue, and you're going to get a good idea of what goes on every day on a line crew. Okay, so that's basically what schools do, is to prepare the student for the first day of what it's going to be like on the line crew. Okay, so some schools are better at it than others, I've heard. I think it just really depends on what that student is willing to put into the school. All right, so hope that answered your question about school. I think that Sam and I later on are going to do a podcast about nothing but going to climbing school and things you can do to get into this kind of work. You guys stay safe out there.